Hello, and welcome to Soul's Bridge Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Amend. I'm a hypnotist, graduate student in social work, and a certifiable consciousness geek. My guest today has an amazing personal story of triumph over sexual abuse and early childhood trauma. On her journey, she learned to put all of her faith into trusting her intuition and her own inner guidance when she left a prestigious and lucrative career in a Los Angeles-based art business. She was willing to face homelessness and uncertainty if it meant discovering true personal freedom and purpose. Along this journey, she experimented with the consciousness-expanding drug LSD that she says was helpful, and compares that experience to an extraordinary session of hypnosis that she had with me. I think that you'll find this woman and her story and these topics fun, inspirational, and compelling evidence that the answers to all life questions are found within. So please join me in welcoming my guest today, Destiny Taylor. And so we're live.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Really excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for you too, because you you had an interesting experience a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. And I always hope for a good experience for somebody whenever they come in for hypnosis. And we really didn't have an agenda per se, did we?
Nope.
Right. And all I was really trying to do was trying to give you an experience, and just see where it goes, so that we could talk about it. And I think we got a little more than we bargained for.
You think?
Now, I mean, I talked to your boyfriend, mm-hmm. and he said that it was. You had mentioned it was kind of profound. We didn't really talk that much about
Not afterwards.
Not afterwards, because we had already been there for 3.5 hours or something like that. So typically when someone comes in, we just talk. We talk for an hour, hour and a half, whatever it takes to kind of get the story, to get the background information, and then we do the hypnosis for whatever it is that we're trying to do or achieve or get at. And with you, we talked for probably 2 hours, mm-hmm. and then we went in, which was fine because, I mean, you've got a great story.
I'm glad you let me tell my story, because I felt like that was important before we started the hypnosis.
I knew it was important,
so you can understand where I'm going and maybe what I wanted from that. Although I did go in without expectations, there was something that I was trying to achieve.
You knew that going in, like when you showed up yesterday or after we talked?
When I showed up.
You knew what you wanted to achieve?
I felt like I knew what I wanted to achieve, although I would not have been disappointed if I didn't get there.
Did you get there?
I did. I did, because the next morning I woke up feeling like I was walking on clouds. I felt so much at peace with myself and in my relationship, and even with the relationships that I have outside, like with my immediate family. I left the office and I immediately called my sister, and she started crying. Oh, wow. Yeah, and then I called my grandmother, one of my grandmother's sisters. And and that was really a good experience just to hear her,
Because all these relationships kind of came up in a way, didn't they?
Yeah.
Or at least some of them. I don't know about the sisters so much, but certainly with the aunts and your uncles, Don and Granny and
yeah.
So what was the expectation coming in? Not expectation, but the hope.
Wanting some peace, wanting to figure out, I guess to say why I am the way I am, and I feel like sometimes I project a negative perspective on myself when it comes to relationships, the relationships that I have.
Do you have a negative? How do you mean negative? What do you mean? You project a negative?
Yeah, well, I guess, if something doesn't go my way, or if I feel like maybe I shouldn't be in this, so why am I in it? Why is this happening to me? And I wanted to figure out if my trauma was involved in how I treat the people in my life. Mm-hmm. And the people I attract, is that because of my trauma? Is that because I haven't fully walked through it? I haven't fully, I guess, what can I say, accepted it,
Accepted the trauma?
Yeah.
Is it okay that we talk about the trauma?
We can, yeah.
Okay. And so in that, okay, so you have some trauma. And specifically, this happened when you were 10? It started at 10.
Well, the sexual trauma started at 5. But this specific one that I was referring to, it started at 10, the one that we talked about.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I've been experiencing that, since I was a young girl.
Yeah. And what was your conclusion? That the trauma does affect the relationships or does not?
What? It does.
It does.
It's painful. And when we went through the hypnosis, my granny said you can let it go because it wasn't just my trauma that I was holding on to.
She said that in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
She came through. See, that's something that happens in hypnosis sometimes. And this is one of the reasons why I think that hypnosis is a spiritual experience, or can be. My inductions take about 40 minutes. And so the person is really stabilized in a somnambulistic state of consciousness. And in that state of consciousness, we seem to be able to access a piece of ourselves that is that spiritual side of our consciousness, that piece of ourselves that is eternal, that piece of ourselves that we return to when we're through with this life. At least those are my conclusions. Those are my thoughts on it anyway. I don't know if there's conclusions, but those are my thoughts on it anyway. And in doing that, you were able to actually talk with your granny and other members of your family and see them and reunite with them. I always say I'm envious of my clients because I've never experienced that, which might be a surprise to some people, but I've never experienced it. I mean, I know how to open that door and allow people to be in that space. And at that point, I'm just following you around, really. So when we were in that space, I just said, what did I say? Do you remember? Just
during the hypnosis?
Just take it all in.
Yeah.
Because when you were there, it's like, there's nothing I can add to this conversation.
You couldn't, and I couldn't even speak sometimes.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, darling, you have to say something.
Well, that was just when I the very first tried to get you to talk.
Well, I was really taking it in because I think the experience that you gave me on Tuesday, as an adult, and when you go through trauma and you go through life as an adult, it is hard with all the pain and responsibilities that you have for you to actually go back and have these spiritual experiences. You can do it as a child. As a child, it's kind of like you're brand new, you're fresh. You don't know what really life is like. And that's how I was as a kid, My great-grandmother in hypnosis on Tuesday tried to come through, but she was very blurred because she passed when I was 1.
Okay.
I couldn't really speak with her. But when I was younger, I spoke with her. When I was 5, when I was 4,
Well, she passed when you were 1.
She passed when I was 1.
How did you talk to her when you were 4 and 5? Because
I'll be outside, talking and praying, not really even knowing what I'm doing. And I remember these things very well. And she was the only one that I would talk to at that time. And she would talk back, But I've lost complete control of that as I got older.
Yeah,
as pain starts, inflicting, and you go through all this hurt and you feel like you're going through this betrayal. I lost touch with all of that.
Oh, because you were 5, but then some things happened when you were 5 too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so should we talk about the trauma then? Do you want to talk about the trauma?
I'm very open. I want to talk about it.
You want to talk about it?
Absolutely.
I think it's helpful for other people who may be listening to this.
It's helpful for me too.
And exactly, because it gives it purpose in a way, doesn't it? When we can assign purpose to an experience such that it helps other people or becomes a bridge for other people to come over so that they have the brave nerve to open up and start talking about what happened to them. You know, they say that 1 in 3 women in the U.S., and that may be worldwide, have a history with sexual abuse. So, okay. Can you say what happened when you were 5?
Yeah. I remember being at my grandmother's house when it happened. I remember her being asleep in the bed when it happened. I don't understand why it was like that, and why do I remember that part, you know, of this person being in the house with me as a kid and doing those things to me. And it was a male cousin, and was giving me money, you know, so I would show up with my mom with money. I feel like that should have been a freaking clue, you know, like, okay, someone's giving me money, but it's not just like, I honestly feel like you have to be very attentive, and most people and parents are not attentive.
So you were left alone. Your granny was sleeping. Mm-hmm. Your mother had left. She
was a young mother, you know. She was in her early 20s, you know, and working probably. Or
do you think she was at
going
work
out
when this happened?
Huh?
Was your granny babysitting you basically?
Yeah.
And this other boy was there. Mm-hmm. How much older was he?
Oh, a grown man. A grown man.
A grown man.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably in his 50s or 60s at this point, so he was an adult.
Okay.
But the thing is, he's a certified pedophile. He went to jail for it.
For what happened to you?
For what, not me specifically, but for other children, you know. And the aunt that I told you about, that's very protective. She came. I remember her coming, you know, home and asking myself and my other cousins, has he ever done anything to you? Everyone else said no, so I said no.
Isn't that so typical, though?
But
you understand why they do that, though, don't you?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, why did you say no?
Well, why I said no? Yeah, because everyone else did. I kind of wanted to be in with everyone else. But you knew
they were lying.
I don't know if they were lying.
Oh.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if they were lying. If something happened to them, they don't talk about it. We don't talk about it as a family, although we should. But everyone else said no, and I knew that it had happened to me, and he was doing that to me, and so I said no.
Yeah.
That's all I know. And so fast forward, you know, 4 or 5 years later, my mom gets married and we move away. You know, we're originally from Texas, so we moved to Mississippi.
Okay.
And I remember getting ready for a new school year, you know, and I was extremely nervous. And
going into a brand new Mississippi school.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably been in Mississippi this time for about a year. Okay. And so I'm already acclimated. You know, I have friends. But now I'm getting ready for a new school year. You know, you lay your clothes out and everything at night, and you take a bath at night. I was nervous. I couldn't sleep. And so this is the very first time it happened. It was like the night before me going to school. And yeah, it started off as like a massage, and then it went deeper than that, and then it kept happening. And I'm the oldest of 8. And so at this point, it's just my sister and I, and we have a little brother. And my sister came to me one night and she said, oh, she felt like her shirt was being raised in the middle of the night. And that's when I acted. I couldn't act when it was just me. I was too afraid, but I felt protective over her. And that was when I went in and I told my mother. And he worked the night shift. So she went and confronted him at his job, and we stayed home. And when she came back, I was waiting for her. And I said, well, what did he say? Well, he said, yeah, you know.
He admitted it.
Mm-hmm.
What? Wow. Wow.
I was for sure we were getting ready to go back home the next day, but we didn't. And this is when I came to you on Tuesday, I kind of had like, had something in my brain, like, why am I like this? Because the next day I went to school after telling my mom, and I told you, I walked in and I immediately felt forgiveness.
For him. Mm-hmm. That is amazing. That is amazing that your heart just was open to that. You told me he was sitting down at a table.
The kitchen table.
The kitchen table. And when you walked in, it hit you. Mm-hmm.
It was just a presence that just came over me, and I felt bad for him. And I didn't feel bad for myself. I felt bad for him. And I immediately felt forgiveness, and I just went to my room.
That's a miracle. I don't know that a lot of people could muster that feeling immediately, but what a gift. Do you think that moment of forgiveness helped you in the way that you dealt with it moving forward? That the hate wasn't there, or wasn't there as much, or?
I was still angry.
You were angry.
I think more angry with my mom.
Yeah, because she didn't leave him.
She was all I had, and we were in a new place, and we were such a tight-knit family, and we still are. So, you know, I'm very close to my grandmother's sisters and brothers and their children, and you know, even my great-grandpa, you know, he has, you know, sisters and brothers that are still alive. So we have reunions every year, and I didn't have a support system there.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have that there. So she was all I had.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I had her. And even today, I feel like I don't have her.
Your mother.
Mm-hmm.
What about before that?
Before that, like I said, she was a young mom, and I spent a lot of time with my biological father and his family, and I feel like I was all over the place because she was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, she's young.
And she was young. So, you know, there was one point in my life when I grew up. And I became the same age that she was, but she had children and I didn't. And then I realized...
But you still don't have children.
I still don't have children. I realized, what would I have done if I had 3 kids and I was on my own?
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, but I felt like me trying to put myself in her shoes at the stage in life where I was at, I felt like maybe I can understand her a little better. I was struggling in my 20s by myself.
Yeah, not without
children.
Without all that.
Yeah, without children, you know, not worrying about health insurance and bills and things
Food
like that. Yeah.
Electric bills.
I couldn't imagine having 3 kids.
Do you think that factored into her thinking that she was either dependent or too unstable, maybe just financially, to just make that change?
I don't know, and I wish she would talk about it. I know that we were a military family. You do not pay rent when you live on base. When you're a military family,
right?
That could have factored into it. The
was
financial
he military?
part, yes.
Okay.
You get extra income when you're married. You get extra income when you have children. It could have been, you know, financial thing. That's why she stayed. I don't know. But for me, I'm like, if you are attracted to a 10-year-old, like, get gone. I don't know. In my mind, like, I can't see how that worked out. I was very confused, and so I became angry. I was angry. I talked back. I hit. I fought them.
So you remained angry for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Probably until my mid-20s, I remained angry. And it...
How did that show up in your life?
The anger?
Yeah.
Okay, so My anger only came out with the people I was close with, relationships,
Okay.
family members,
Okay.
immediate family, or in a relationship. You know, as a kid, I was extremely insecure. I lacked confidence. I mimicked a lot of my friends because I was trying to find an identity. I didn't know who I was. My first relationship outside of my mother's house, being an adult, my anger came out there. It came out in that relationship.
More so than I had prior.
Yeah.
And it was noticeable.
Yeah.
Created problems, I assume.
Yeah.
Did it demolish the relationship?
Oh, absolutely. If it should have demolished the relationship a lot sooner. It lasted longer than I expected.
Is this the professional?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I tried to find identity in that relationship as well, you know. And I was enraged. Sometimes I would light shit on fire.
Wow.
And he would just look at me.
You would just light things on fire.
I tried.
What
I
you
would
try to
get
burn?
matches, clothes and shoes, and I put everything in a pile.
You were angry at him and did this?
It was like, it could be a trigger. It didn't even have to necessarily be him. He could have said something and then it was just like, boom.
But this was your, what, 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, 19, 20.
And you said by your mid-20s, it subsided some.
We broke up
How long were you together?
like 5.5 years.
So at the end of that relationship,
I didn't have another relationship for a long time. I was dating around. I was a serial dater. Nothing ever stuck. You know, there was no relationship like that.
but you also started traveling. When did
Yeah.
you start traveling?
I didn't start traveling until I was just a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, I've gotten that out of sync. But
Yeah, it's okay.
okay, so I wasn't sure when you started traveling, but okay. So at the end of the relationship, you kind of were just dating, but you didn't. Do you think if you had been in another relationship that the anger would have come up? Mm-hmm. Probably, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you. So in that relationship, I knew it wasn't going to last. God told me it wasn't going to last. I remember.
Hold on 1 second. God told you?
Yeah.
How did he tell you?
It was like a whisper.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was like a whisper. I remember driving his car. I remember where we lived. It was adjacent to his training facility. Mm-hmm. I remember being alone and on the way home, and it was just, it's not going to last. You are not going to be there. And so.
That was the whisper? Mm-hmm. So the whisper was exactly, it's not going to last. You're not going to be there. Because it probably connected to a thought you were having. Or did it?
It connected to, probably to a thought I was having because it was a very tough lifestyle to be in.
With the
professional athlete. It was a very tough lifestyle, you know. We were young and he was good. And so when you are good, people acknowledge that and you are rewarded immediately. And it didn't just come financially. It was just fans and people.
Attention.
All the attention. Yeah. And so that played heavy on me. And it played heavy on our relationship.
Were you secure in yourself at that time?
No.
Okay.
No.
But you said something to me that there was something about him that it did inspire you.
Oh, he inspired me very much. And because he was so good at what he was doing. And
you asked him a question one time.
Mm-hmm.
What was that question?
Why did you choose baseball?
And what was his answer?
Because I'm good at it.
And you thought about that.
What am I good at? What can I do?
Yeah, because if I could get good at something.
If I can find what I'm good at.
Right. That's a better way of saying it. Yeah.
If I can find what I'm good at, I can have success too.
Yeah.
I can achieve something.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with security. Security starts in the home. And when it's not there, you get out and you just lash out. You just get into anything and everything. And I didn't get into drugs and alcohol. I got into sex with a lot of people. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Even in relationships.
And it was your journey.
It was my journey. And I'm not regretful. I don't regret it. I've learned so much from it because I'm not like that person today, and I feel like I found my person as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were still figuring it out.
Oh, man.
Big time.
By myself.
But you didn't have anything to go on.
Nothing.
And I think that what you said was amazing. Security starts in the home. Mm-hmm. That hit me like a bat between the eyes when you said that. I think that is so important. And it wasn't there. Mm-mm. And so you were looking for... Well, whatever it is, we always go to those things, don't we? Drugs, alcohol, sex, anything that feeds the ego, vanity, greed.
Try to fill that dark hole. Try to fill that dark abyss. And I woke up every day with guilt on my shoulders, and I didn't.
You felt guilty about it.
Everything in my life.
Everything was guilty.
It was just a feeling. I woke up and I never had a sense of peace. I just woke up feeling empty, and I searched for everything externally. It wasn't internal. People talk about God. I grew up in the church. I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I went to a Baptist church.
Yeah.
These are the holy of the holiest.
I didn't tell you this yesterday, but I was introduced to Christianity through Pentecostal church and was in there for 3 years. We ran the aisles. They talked in tongues.
Yeah.
I didn't talk in tongues. But I ran the aisles and we danced at the altar and we did all the stuff and
I'm not against it. It reminds me of my grandmother. I love when they get into playing the organ, I love that part. I'm not against it at all. It's the rules that I'm against. You did that in
a black church though, didn't you?
Yeah.
Mine was a white church. It was a little different. The music was different.
Well, yeah. I guess in a black church, they play the organ pretty hard and they stomp pretty hard, and, the Holy Ghost and crying and speaking in tongues. And, I can watch a sermon on YouTube and, they'll get into playing the organ and I get a little jolted in my spirit.
Do you a little bit? Yeah.
It
still kind of gets me a little bit, but it's always with a little trepidation that it's like, no, don't do that. But I had good experiences there. And it was the first time that I felt spiritual growth. Mm-hmm. And I had good experiences with it.
I didn't feel spiritual growth in the church.
I did because I quit smoking pot. I was a pot smoker when I was a teenager. I quit smoking pot. I quit watching TV. All my time was spent either talking with people or working, but I was more connected. And those things are more, I don't know, grounded living, I guess, in a way. I wasn't filled with distraction. I was connecting with people in positive ways. So those were growth points for me. The first time I'd ever really done that in my life at that point. I guess maybe that was what I interpreted as spiritual growth.
Yeah. I mean, because when I started, my spiritual journey, so many things fell off of me, away from me. People left me.
Yeah.
It was.
When did that happen? Okay, so you broke up with your boyfriend.
Yeah.
You're in your 25, 26, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. When did that piece of it come in? Did you go back to church?
No. God has always been with me, though.
Yeah,
always.
You've already sensed that.
Even though I was being molested and I was made to go to church every Sunday, I never put together that the church was involved. I never put together. Right, you didn't blame the church. I didn't blame the church. I didn't blame God. It taught me how to pray, though, and I continue to do that.
Interesting.
I never lost faith. Mm-hmm. I've always tried to picture someone different other than who I was at that time. What if I was confident, What if I was just this exuberant person that just had all of this energy, at 10 years old, 11, I'm like thinking about being this confident person, not knowing it was going to take me maybe, 2 decades to get there.
Are you confident now?
Yeah, I feel very good about myself now, extremely. And that's because I started growing on my own terms. I wasn't just
How do you mean by that?
You can talk to people, you can ask for advice, from a spiritual leader. You can go to church and say, hey, I need to talk about something. And they would say, this is what you need to do. Let's pray. And you would think something's going to change right then and there. It does not change right then and there.
Okay.
Especially if you're not open to it. And your heart and mind has to be open to change.
Yeah. Well, because usually what someone's going to tell you is what was right for them.
Exactly. Sometimes I tell people, and sometimes I tell my friends, I'm not going to always answer the phone. You don't always have to call me, because I'm not going to be there. I'm not guiding you through this. There's something more powerful and deeper that you need to get into. And it's not just hearing my story.
Yeah.
It's actually going out and telling your own and looking for something that goes beyond this world, beyond this atmosphere,
Yeah,
So,
well, okay, tell me more about that.
So when I started my journey, I'm living in LA, and okay, example, my boyfriend's uncle came over a couple hours before I came here tonight. Tonight, yes.
And would this be?
It's not that. It's not Uncle Thane.
Okay.
It's his brother, though.
Yeah. Okay, I know.
It's a brother to Uncle Thane.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes over and he said, I heard you worked at an art gallery in LA. What happened to that, and why'd you quit? And I said, well, I just needed something different. You know that feeling? Nope.
No.
I said, I needed a new journey. That journey was over. I needed to start a new one. Do you know what I mean? Nope. Then I thought, okay, sometimes you just can't explain some things to some people, and that's okay. Not everyone will get it.
I'm glad you say that that's okay, because it allows people to just be.
Yeah, not everyone.
Not everyone's
will get
on
it.
your journey, and
So
gets that point. Yeah.
For me, I was working in an art gallery. Everything was good. The people were great, but I just felt like I needed something new, and I was tired.
So was this a turning point for you then?
Mm-hmm.
In this? Okay. And then is this when you started your fasting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you felt like that was a springboard. Is that what you're about to say? Because I feel like I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me more.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was having anxiety, I was having anxiety, and usually when I get anxiety, I don't know how to control it. So usually what I do is cut my hair. I do something with my hair, and at this point I had a flourishing afro, and I didn't want to cut it. So I said, I gotta try something new, something that's gonna stick, because one day I will cut this hair.
How big was that afro?
It was probably a little out here.
It's a medium afro.
It was medium, but it was big enough and flourishing for me.
Nothing. Go ahead. All right.
But yeah, and so I wanted to find something that would stick, not just something on the outside. What can I do that's going to stick and go along with me?
Let me interject a little something here. So I'm talking with Pat Longo. She's a healing psychic out in Long Island, New York. And she told me, in a session that I had with her, just had one session with her, but she told me that she felt like people's anxieties is connected to unrealized when we don't live in our gift, that anxiety builds up. And I'm just, because I think I don't know, it seems like that's maybe what was happening with you a little bit.
I feel like that. Yeah. Now that you say that, at that point I can see that. Because I did go to see someone, and I explained that to you a couple of days ago. I went to see that psychic. Remember I told you that?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this is before the fast. It was probably like 6 months before that. And I just quit the job. I just quit working at the art gallery.
And you saw the psychic after you quit the job?
After I quit my job. And she said, you're a jack of all trades. You can do it all. You can do everything, And her saying that, I guess it correlates with what you just said, because I wasn't walking in my gifts. Of course, I can be trained to do anything. I can go on YouTube and figure out how to do something. But is that my gift? And it wasn't. So fast forward, I go
You
into
just weren't put here for art.
huh?
You weren't put here to
It gave me a voice though, because
gave you some confidence
it
too,
did.
probably.
It gave me a lot of confidence. Oh my gosh, I met so many great people, and to realize these people are just as effed up as you are. They're just they're just expressing it in a different way.
Okay. So you realized kind of like, the grass isn't greener. It's just grass everywhere you go.
Exactly. It's how you look at the grass.
All right.
So yeah.
So you weren't walking in your gifts, and you made a choice.
I made a choice
because you were making good money.
I was making.
You walked away from a good job, good money,
and that's what it
was kind of highfalutin a bit.
That's what Uncle said a couple hours ago. He's like, I don't see the problem. What was the problem?
See, I was saying that yesterday when you were telling it to me. It's like, how did you know to walk away? It's like everything this world could tell you would say stay. Mm-hmm. Do something with that. Make money.
But I told you my ancestors were speaking to me. Remember, I told you what happened before I quit my job.
What happened before?
Before I quit the job, I would walk out of work every day, every night, and I just felt I have to leave. I have to go. But it was a scary thought to have, because you're conditioned to always work. And when you work for someone else, you have to have a job before you leave that job.
Is that Dutch lady came in that one time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But she didn't know what was going on in my life at the time. I told you at the time I was reading.
Because you were reading a book and you're reading the Bible.
I was reading a book and I was reading the Bible. And I don't just start picking up the Bible and reading from Genesis, and that's what I was doing at the time. I just felt the need to pick it up and start reading. And so I came across an incredible story, and I was just like, okay.
It was the story of Daniel.
The story of the Israelites and
Okay.
Joseph, right?
Oh, it was not Daniel. I'm sorry, Joseph. Right.
Joseph, yes. It's the story of Joseph. Do you want me to break that down real quick? I don't need to do that.
Because we don't want to.
No, I don't really need to do that.
But the thing of it was you saw some profound connection between the story of
slavery.
Joseph's the slavery that Joseph was sold into, and how he then later found himself on top and was in charge of all the food and provisions for that time and place. And his brothers came who didn't know who he was, and he was generous to them.
Yeah. And he invited them to come and to live on the land, to feast on the land. And by the time Joseph died, the Egyptians, they forgot about Joseph. And so they forgot about the Israelites.
Right.
And when the Israelites didn't have anything, they didn't have livestock, they didn't have money, they said, we have ourselves. And so they sold themselves into slavery.
They gave themselves over to the king.
They gave themselves over, yeah. And so I shut that, and I was like, okay. But on the other end, this other book I was reading was called The Underground Railroad. So, of course, it had a lot to do with slavery. And by the time I finished that book, I had a fire lit underneath me, and I just typed up that email. And, actually, I'm skipping a part. So I finished reading the book. I go to work. There's a Dutch lady that comes in and she says, where are your owners? She doesn't know what's going on in my life at the time, but that's the night that I wrote the email.
So the way she phrased that, it just it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. So I was like, okay.
And she didn't mean anything by it.
She didn't mean anything by it. She didn't know what was going on in my life at the time.
Yeah.
She had no idea, but it helped. It pushed me.
It pushed you. And you wrote the email, you quit.
And I quit. Yeah. 30 days later, I quit.
You're done. And then what?
Okay. And so I'm freelancing. I'm working for a few artists that I met in the art gallery. Managing their art and doing marketing and things like that for them. And then I started traveling. I was dating an Italian guy at the time. And so I go to Italy, and he was just very supportive. You should do this, and you should model, and you should do all these great things.
Yeah.
But he was a dog. He was a dog. And, by the time I get into my fast, God said, your enemies will exalt you. And when he said that, that's when I found out that the Italian guy I was dating was sleeping with other women in Ibiza. Ibiza is just sex and drugs. And so he was sleeping with other women there. And so I was just like, I don't ever want to see you again. And, I hate you and all these other things. And I'm not coming to Italy, because I already had a planned trip to go there. And now that I figured this part out in the middle of my fast, I was like, I'm not.
So you did a fast. Mm-hmm. What's it called?
The Daniel's fast.
See, that's where I got the Daniel from.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a 21-day fast. Mm-hmm. Only fruits and vegetables and water.
Okay.
Period.
Raw, not cooked.
Well, if you cook, it has to be in like olive oil, grapeseed oil. You can't use lard and things like that.
Well, what about just steamed?
It could be steamed. Yes,
okay.
It can be steamed. Okay. Yeah. So I did that for 21 days, and I had dreams, I had visions. Things just fell away from me. I just became so disciplined in my life.
You've inspired me to try this, and I want to try it as soon as we're done with Thanksgiving. We're going to go away to Thanksgiving. We're planned a trip to go away, and when I return from that trip, I want to very quickly, within a day or two, be on this plan.
Well, yeah, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I just had a lot going on. And I'm in LA, and LA is really expensive. I don't have a job anymore. I don't have that, biweekly paycheck. And so, although I was freelancing, that also gave me confidence, but it wasn't very financially secure.
I'm afraid you might be tapping the thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. sorry.
I don't know if it's going to translate. I have no idea.
Oh,
I'm not wearing headphones right now, so I can't hear that.
Okay.
I'm just wondering.
Okay. Well, I'm not even going to touch it anymore.
Okay.
So, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I got on Instagram, and I saw this girl talk about the Daniel's fast. So I started researching it.
What was her purpose for the fast?
I really don't know.
How did you know this would be a spiritual journey?
I wanted it to be a spiritual journey.
So you just set your intention for it to be a spiritual journey.
Yeah, I did, because then I started doing my research. I started reading the book of Daniel. I started to figure out, why did Daniel do this fast, and why is it something that we're doing today? I really had to do a lot of research on it, because I didn't want to fail.
Well, tell me more about it. Give me the elevator pitch for this diet.
Okay, so 21 days. Daniel fasted for 21 days. He had all types of dreams and visions in the Bible, and so for me, I wanted it to be a spiritual journey. I wanted to know, what did God have for me, because I was tired of doing it by myself.
And you had these inklings when you were this is what pushed you out of this art studio, and you're just trying to find your way. It's a spiritual journey. This is you trying to find the path you're intended to be on, I guess. Is that right?
I wanted to go there.
And live in your gift. And okay.
Yeah, I wanted to go there. I didn't care what it took. If I had to be homeless, if I had to give up everything, which is basically what I did, right. I wanted to go
Hungry
there.
For God.
I wanted to start all the way over. Like, if He didn't give it to me, then I needed to let it go.
Well, I do think the more I think about spiritual things, one of the things I hear people say, I just give it to God. I'm just going to give it to God.
Submission.
Well, if it's something you can't control, you can do that. But if there's something else to it that, if there's something you could do, for example, I think God wants us to do what we can, to even if it's something like a healing, but to go after that healing. Don't just wait for it. Don't just ask for it. You have to
be proactive.
Yeah. And so I think it's important that we take as much responsibility as we can without, trying to control things we can. So there's that. And you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after the research, I just went grocery shopping. And I do want to let you know it is expensive because they tell you if you can afford organic, go organic. And that's what I did. It was my first time, and I was giving it my all. Yeah. And yes, you will have these salt cravings, these sugar cravings. One thing that Dr. Jax, he's on Instagram, and I was reading about the Daniel's fast on his website. He was saying if you start experiencing these cravings, write down what it is that you want answered at the end of this fast. What do you want to know as you go through it and by the time it's done, and so focus on those things. And so when I was having these cravings, I just felt like sometimes I dug up this energy inside of me, which made me very disciplined.
The cravings themselves digs up this energy?
No.
But the cravings are essential part of this, aren't they?
It lets you know when you're hungry or when, or if you have that sensation, of course. But, when you go to bed and you have to have a cookie at night, you don't necessarily need that cookie. And sometimes we give into that craving, sometimes we submit to the things that we don't necessarily need. Mm-hmm. So for this, it's like, okay, if I want to do this and if I want to achieve at it, what is it that I have to give up? And it wasn't just about the food. It was literally, I had to starve myself of even like sexual satisfaction. If I had a craving for that, sometimes if you dealing with someone who have addictions like that, they go out there and they search for it, they look for it. This was a journey that I wanted to just like, I didn't want any part of anything or anyone.
You just wanted answers.
I wanted answers, and I wanted myself. I wanted my true identity. Who was I meant to be without the pain of others, without the trauma and the hurt of the people who raised me?
Oh man,
I wanted to figure that out. I wanted that. My grandmother, one of my paternal grandmother, when I was 25 going through my breakup, it was the worst thing in life. Imagine being like financially secure and shopping it up on Fifth Ave to living in Brooklyn with roaches and mice. That was my story. But
you were willing to sleep with the roaches and mice.
Yeah, I guess.
Because that's what it took.
And it built character, doesn't it?
How glad are you did that you did that?
I'm very satisfied with myself. I love my journey,
So what did you find out? What'd you glean from this experience?
Okay, so during the fast, of course, I had to let people go, and it was natural. It didn't hurt, it was so natural. It was crazy. It's like, if you're going through withdrawals from drugs and that pain you feel coming down and the sweats and everything. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have really any of that. It was just so natural throughout the entire 21 days. I let go of the guy I was talking to, of course. I mean, it stung for a little bit, but whatever. God said your enemies will exalt you, and used him as a stepping stool for me to actually move to Italy 2 months later without him being a part of that journey. I just left. I went because that's what I felt like I was supposed to do. And being in LA, I packed up my house. I sold everything to one woman. I put photos of my apartment on Facebook Marketplace. I had people call and people message. One woman took everything. That was a sign for me. It was time for me to go.
It was time for good. And then some interesting things happened that would seem tragic when you arrived, but it was almost like a spiritual setup to be right where you needed to be.
Exactly. So during the fast, I started seeing like double and triple numbers, not necessarily paying attention to them, not knowing what they meant. I get to Italy 5 days later, I'm robbed. And I kind of felt like, I I should have known better. I went to another country. I got my own apartment.
They came in and stole your stuff. They didn't rob your person.
No,
they robbed your place.
The place, yeah. Totally felt violated. So they robbed my place. I wasn't there at the time. But, you know, I got my money back, of course.
You got your money back?
Yeah.
How'd you get your money
I was
back?
only there for 5 days. I called that landlord. I want my money back, and I'm moving, and I have to find a new place.
Okay. Well, he probably didn't have to give it to you, but he did.
He did.
Good on him.
Thank you.
And you.
So yeah, and then I started recognizing, you know, these double numbers, and I said, it was like 10-10 at this point, you know, and I said, what does this mean? Like, why am I continuously seeing these double, triple numbers
like
all the time?
Yeah.
And so when I finally like looked it up, you're at the right place at the right time. No matter if you're going through troubles, no matter what's happening in your life, you're meant to be in this space at this point.
Right.
So always know that whatever's going against you, this is where you're supposed to be. And I still see those numbers to this day. And when I told you that, your response was, do you know what time it was when you text me back? And so, yeah.
It was 11:11.
11:11.
I know. That's the number that always shows up in my life. Or I started noticing it. I didn't know that was even a thing. Mm-hmm. But it happened so many times. I'm like, I am seeing this 11:11, 1:11, 11:11, 1:1, 1:11.
Your office number is 1:11.
Yeah, and then they redid the office numbers in here, and you can probably see it in the camera, but it's 1:11.
Yeah.
I thought, I am not leaving here now.
It's
I was
going to
move
space.
in the basement. And then I was like, no, I'm not moving now.
This space has such good energy. I immediately, when my boyfriend was talking about you and his sessions with you, I already knew what you look like. And
That's
so
weird.
when he forwarded the your last podcast with Dr. Kim,
mm-hmm.
I was like, that's who I imagined. I
Really?
already knew what he looked like. He's like, well, maybe I explained him to you. I'm like, I don't think you did. And if you did, it was maybe like 9 months ago when we first met, you know? But I already knew, like, I felt like I knew this person. And when I walked in, and it was so organic, and we just sat.
In here, the building.
The building.
Rock and wood.
Your energy. I even bought Palo Santo today, but I didn't need it.
I feel bad because I don't know what Palo Santo is. What is that?
It's just like a citrus stick, and it just gives off positive energy. I actually like using it around my house.
Oh yeah, I love citrus.
Mm-hmm.
All my essential oils that I like are citrus based.
Well, I'll give it to you.
No. I mean,
We have
curious
some
to know
more
what it
at
smells
home.
like, huh?
Yeah, we have some more at home.
Okay, sure.
But I always leave my
anything.
friends with some, you know. I said, wake up, you know, burn it, say a prayer, you know, always start your day with intentions, with positivity, and let yourself know that if anything negative comes into your life or in your way, just move through it as you should, you know. Don't give into it.
Do you spend some time early in your day setting your intentions of what you want? Mm-hmm. Or do you just wait for the day to happen and try to act the best way possible?
No,
I kind of do the latter a lot, and it's probably not ideal. And I've noticed lately, like I'm really just inside's just telling me you need to do more to start your days. You just need to do more. You need to get quiet. Mm-hmm. Realize what's going on in your body. You realize what's going on in your mind. Find your anxieties.
And it's not just for you. It's for the people around you. I realize that setting my day and setting my intentions, I live with my boyfriend at the moment. It helps our relationship, you know. When I don't do that, I see what happens, you know.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you so dramatic right now? I'm at work. That's not fair.
That's not fair.
It's not fair. But now it's kind of like I spend a good 2 hours before I start my day.
2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, I have the time right now, so.
Well, and you're using it well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, so you're in Italy.
I'm in Italy. This fast was just, it started a whole new life for me, honestly. I think it allowed me to be here with you. It allowed me to meet you and go through what we went through a couple days ago.
I do want to talk more about that.
Yeah. So fast forward, going through the fast, I'm in Italy. I'm in a whole nother country and I don't speak the language. I'm a little older than most models. Most models are starting out 15, 17 years old. I'm 33.
And you look like you're 23.
Thank you.
You really do, and no one's going to disagree with that.
And I mean, when my agent signed me, they signed me on my birthday. I was like, okay, God, like, what else do you have in store for me? I remember going to a casting and, being from America, let's just say the difference, being a black woman in Italy, it is pretty tough, and it can also be tough here in America.
You're right. But more so in Italy.
But more so in Italy because there's not a lot of education on African American culture. But you have black women there from Portugal, from Spain, from Brazil, from Argentina.
But is there a population there of black people that came there as a result of slavery, like they did here in the U.S., the U.K., and around the world? No.
Okay. There was a lot of refugees there. At the time, there's a lot of refugees from Senegal living on the street. But of course, we still have differences, because I'm getting questioned about my skin color. I'm a little lighter than most black people. And so then I got to dig into that history, about African American culture.
People are actually asking you about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Europeans ask a lot of questions. They want to know. They want to know what tribe you're from. And when you don't know, then they kind of get like, how do you not know?
How do you not know?
So then I got to go.
Well, I think that's a perspective that Europeans have because it is, and I'm guessing. I think I'm guessing on this, but they are small countries. They are close together. Mm-hmm. People, the borders are open. People travel all around,
all
and
around.
So your origin has a lot to do with who you are in that whole European Union kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when they see you, you're tall. I have a very long neck.
You do. You have a model's neck.
They want to know everything about you. They want to know your life story. But it's all about education. And there's been some things because Italy is a fashion hub. Milan is a fashion hub. And, there's been instances where fashion designers are using things from African American culture and they're bringing it forward into fashion today. And it's not appropriate. And that's because they lack the education, And so we go through all of that. There's a Facebook page called Black Americans in Italy. And I got on there and most black women are married to Italians anyway. I mean, there's no one racist there, but, it can be mentally challenging having to constantly tell that same narrative.
And this was so part of the journey.
It's a part of my journey. And so I remember going to a casting and there was beautiful black women everywhere speaking all different languages. And I'm just loving it, relishing in it. And so I go to the casting. I didn't get it. I didn't get the job. Devastated about it. I fall asleep. I have a dream. I have a dream of the molestation that happened at 10 years old. In this dream, though, I'm not 10 years old. I'm 33 in the dream.
Same perpetrator.
But I'm also confident woman, 33, confident woman, going through this act all over again. But I can't scream and I can't yell. And that devastated me.
Did you scream and yell when you were a young child? You said quiet. Mm-hmm. But in this instance, you wanted to yell, and you couldn't.
I couldn't. So I woke up and I asked God why. And he said, because you're not talking about it. And you need to talk about it.
It's part of your story.
It's part of my story. It is. And so I went home a month later.
So then it's part of your power.
Mm-hmm. My voice is a part of my power. I didn't know that. For such a long time, I didn't know how to communicate with anyone. And being in that relationship with that professional athlete, I remember also asking him, you're having conversations with all these different type of people that have nothing to do with your profession. How are you maintaining relationships with them, Because we all have something in common, and that's people. And it's sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But for someone who came from where I came from and raised how I was raised, because mind you, I was raised with this perpetrator. He was helping me do homework. He taught me how to drive. He came to high school sporting events. I was raised with this person until I left that house.
Okay.
So I've never been heard. Never been heard. Mm-hmm. So 2018, I'm having this dream, and God said, because you're not talking about it.
You're talking about it right now.
I'm talking about it right now. Yeah. And for so long, it took me a while because I didn't want to hurt my mother's feelings. I talked to her, but I feel like I'm not as close as I want to be with her. Mm-hmm. And I start thinking to myself, why would you be okay with that? Did something happen to you for you to be okay with that?
Yeah.
Generational curses. And I don't know if we talked about this.
We did talk about generational.
We did talk about generational trauma, right? So, the same aunt who asked me at 5 years old, was he touching you guys? The same aunt that asked my cousins and I this question, she's the one who came to me 2 years ago after I went home and had this dream. And she said, I was going back to Italy. She's like, why are you going back? I don't understand. Why are you going back? And I said, well, let me tell you this dream that I had, and I feel like I need to do something about it. Wait a minute.
When did you have this conversation with your aunt? Whatever.
It was the summer.
This summer. And now your plan is to go back to Italy.
Last summer. Yeah.
Did you go back to Italy?
Okay, hold on.
Okay, I'm getting a little. I got my timelines mixed up here.
Okay, let's stay on.
So you were in Italy.
So April 2018, I'm in Italy. I have this dream. Mm-hmm. Okay, I go home.
But you had the dream at the photo shoot. You fell asleep at the photo shoot.
No.
Okay,
I didn't even get the job. I was devastated.
Well, you said you fell asleep. Okay, but this was just when you were there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get the job, so I went home. It's completely devastated. And when I'm devastated and I'm sad, I fall asleep because I just want to forget about it.
Yeah.
And so when I fell asleep, that's when I had the dream.
Okay.
So God tells me I'm not using my voice. I'm not talking about it. So I go home and I do what you're doing. I start a podcast. Okay. So it took me a while to get it going. Because I was so afraid of hurting my mother's feelings, and it's out there now. People can hear it, and that's the one thing that held me back. And so when I was on my way back to Italy, my aunt said, why are you leaving? And so I told her about this dream that I had, and I let her listen to the first 10 minutes of this podcast. And she turns it off and she says, this happened to you. And I said, yes, it happened to me. Well, why didn't you tell me? I didn't tell anyone. Until now.
It's very common.
Yeah. So she starts thinking, she starts probing her mind, and she says, your grandmother is 10 years older than me. So when my grandmother was 20, she was around 10 years old. Her and my mom are maybe 3-4 years apart, my aunt and my mom. Mm-hmm. And so my aunt said, I love my sister. Your grandmother was like a mother to me, and I always wanted to go to her house. And every weekend I went to her house. And she said, I don't remember who she was with at that time, but I remember, and excuse my language, I remember it being too big. And so I said, well, can you elaborate on that? And she said, well, first it just started off as touching, as fondling, but then he actually tried to rape me and it wouldn't go in. So if that was happening to me on the weekends, it was happening to your mom during the week. And that put everything in perspective for me.
But you've never had this conversation with your mom.
Never.
And I don't think it's uncommon for, Dr. Kim has a similar story. I don't know if you picked up on that in the deal, but when she approached her mom about this event that happened to her with her dentist, her mom didn't respond. It was a bit dismissive.
Yeah, like my mom, because I had another conversation with her, and she asked me why I was going back to Italy, and I just told her about the dream, and I've never talked about it since I was 10 years old with her. And I told her about it, and I said, the only person I had to protect me was you, and you didn't do that. And
she tried. She was asking questions.
Well, what I got from it, what goes on in this house stays in this house, and that's verbatim.
From her? Mm-hmm. Okay, I misspoke.
When I was 10. What goes on in this house stays in this house. Verbatim.
She said that. Mm-hmm. Did you talk to her about that? Did that come up?
So when I mentioned the dream to her and I told her, I feel like God has something for me, or he wouldn't have gave me that dream in that place at that time. That's why I'm going back. Then I also said, you could have protected me, but I also have this problem with not fully disclosing everything to her. Like, I let go of that part of speaking to her when I was young. And it's been a long time since I've actually been able to have a one-on-one conversation with her. A very long time. I let it go when I was 10. I let it completely. Never followed her around the house. Didn't cook what she cooked. So I didn't learn how to cook what she was cooking. You know what most daughters do is what my sister did, She was around my mom a lot. They're very close right now. Mm-hmm. Me, I was distant, and I stayed that way for a very long time until I got in this period of going back and forth to Europe, and I came home to Texas like a little layover for a month, and then I would leave again,
Always modeling
in Italy.
In Italy, yeah.
In Italy.
So it was like a job you were going back to.
Yeah, but also a sense of freedom. It felt good to be out there.
Yeah, but you're expanding your horizons, and you're becoming, and you're learning, and you're discovering, and
one thing she did
being
say,
appreciated.
She did say I was courageous. She was like, "You have a lot more courage than I do," and I took that and ran with it.
I think you have a tremendous amount of courage to not do those things, but to face these things, and not just face them, but stare it down and say, I will deal with you no matter what.
And okay, so I go back to Italy, and guess who I go back to Italy. I'm still in this mood where, I got to keep moving. I don't understand. Like, I have this thing.
Okay.
And I feel guided. I don't question it. I feel guided. And I went to London. 2 days into being into London. I didn't tell you this on Tuesday. I just didn't feel like it was involved with what I really wanted to know and wanted to achieve. But 2 days being into London, I run into my ex, the professional athlete.
What? From Texas?
He's not from Texas, but
he was from San Diego, right?
He's from San Diego, yeah.
Okay, but you ran into him
in London.
In London. And what was that like?
Oh, man, we have not spoken in 10 years. Our breakup was horrible because I was off the chain at that point in my life. I was just going on a tangent, like, packing stuff, breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny how everything went about, because I didn't plan on going to London. The trip was like cheap, $50 to go from Milan to London. But they're running into
that guy in that city, in all the gin joints.
Yeah, we had a schedule. I'm going with a friend. She was very meticulous about her schedule, what time we need to be in a certain place, but we kind of got a little off track a little bit. I remember taking pictures in front of the Buckingham Palace, and I heard my name, and I just was like... But I was so cool about it.
You like your response.
I never thought I would be that cool about it. I always thought we would see each other in New York.
Because you've just come so far.
Yeah. I thought...
And the confidence you didn't have, you have now.
I have now.
Yeah.
And I was like, but do I look good? She's like, girl, you look great. Okay, cool.
Okay, now, so you talked to him. Yeah.
We talked. He treated me... He said my name, but his brother was there. His brother's wife was there. And I remember them... we were together for 5.5, almost 6 years. And so his brother gave me the biggest hug ever. His wife His brother's wife gave me the biggest hug ever. He gave me a little cousin hug, little tap on the shoulder.
It's appropriate considering.
And
all
his
the
wife
things.
was there actually, but she wasn't at the same space at that time. And funny thing about that, that's the woman he started dating right after we broke up.
Okay.
I remember, at that time, I said, you met someone. This is like right when we broke up and his birthday came around. I was like, you met someone, you're really into her. She's not like me and her skin is different than mine. And he's like, yeah, I'm really into her. And that's funny. You would have a dream about that and all these things. And yeah, they're married and they have children. And I think it's awesome. I think it's great. But I cried for 2 weeks after that.
But why did you cry? What did you realize in that moment? What was the significance for you?
How far I've come.
Yeah, exactly.
Then also, I could have seen him in any place in 10 years, literally. And I've been to San Diego.
But it was important. It was almost kind of cool that you saw him there.
Yeah.
Doing your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we started messaging on Facebook and he's like, what are you doing there? And like, what's going on with you in your life? And I was just, I didn't want to talk too much, but he kept probing. So I said, yeah, I'm a model in Italy. Like, whatever. Big deal.
No big deal. Just kind of glamorous.
But it was cool. It was really cool. And I cried because I have come so far, especially from that person. And I want to say that little girl, even at 25 that I was, to being this woman that I'm becoming. I was very proud of myself. He even said something to me and I don't remember what it was. I just remember, I got to end this conversation. You're reminding me of when we were 19.
Well, that's all very flattering, isn't it? It is, right? It is very flattering.
Yeah. It was nice. It was nice.
Okay, so, all right, so
let's talk about why I came to see you.
Good.
So,
why did you want to come see me?
A month ago, I started having reoccurring dreams about my trauma.
Okay.
So, I'm sleeping.
Just for the record,
Yeah.
You didn't come to me to work on issues like that.
I came.
Maybe you did, but we didn't talk about that. We
didn't really talk about it.
I wanted you to experience hypnosis.
Yeah, but that's the reason why.
And I didn't. When we got in there, I just followed you.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to lead you or do some therapeutic thing or anything like that. I was just. Once you get into that super conscious state, though, things come up.
Well, I started having reoccurring dreams about my trauma. I even heard my perpetrator's voice.
In the hypnosis? Mm-mm. Oh, in the dream.
In my dreams, yeah. In my dreams. And so it was getting to me, and then my boyfriend brought up you and you wanting to talk about the difference between psychedelics and hypnosis.
Yeah.
Because I did have a very profound psychedelic experience.
In April?
In April of this year, yes. And it had a lot to do with my ancestors, with my mother, even us, the person I'm with in my relationship. Yeah. And so I'm not trying to chase that experience.
I think that was what my agenda was, is I wanted you to experience hypnosis so that you could compare that with a super conscious state achieved through substance.
I felt like I was on psychedelics.
In the hypnosis? Well, you said it started out that way.
It started out, my skin was crawling. And usually when I'm on...
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Yeah. Well, when I'm on
but
acid...
not everyone's had that experience either.
Yeah. Well, the first time I did acid, it lasted for 6 hours. Maybe more. Maybe for my partner, it was 6 hours. For me, it was probably like 8 to 10. But the whole time, my skin was crawling. And I feel that all over. And so when we started the hypnosis, that only lasted for a few minutes.
Okay.
That was probably the only difference.
I wonder if having that experience, like if you had not had that psychedelic experience, if you would have had that experience in hypnosis.
Maybe I probably wouldn't have recognized it or pinpointed it.
Right. It was at least similar. And so that lasted for a little bit. Was that kind of weird?
No, because I was familiar with it.
Okay.
And I kind of felt like I knew where I was going.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
My psychedelic experience was a spiritual one.
You talked about your seeing your ancestors and then feeling that pain. Tell us more about that experience.
Well,
maybe tell us about that, and then we'll talk about the hypnosis.
Okay. Anything that made me uncomfortable made me laugh first.
Yeah.
So I laughed uncontrollably, and then I cried. So the first person I saw in my head was my mother. Her face made me uncomfortable. And I just laughed, and I laughed, and then it turned into tears.
Yeah.
And it was just streaming down my face. And I remember being in a fetal position, and I knew my partner was there, and I just said, I just need him to help me. I need him to help me. But something was saying, he doesn't need to help you. You need to do this by yourself. He doesn't need to help you. And I look over at him, and he's just smiling at me while I'm going through this. And then I see my ancestors. I felt the bondage.
Describe ancestors.
Slavery. I don't know what else to say about that.
So we're somewhere.
I felt the bondage. I felt the
400
chains.
years back.
Yeah, I felt the chains. I seen them. I seen their skin color. I seen everything, and that made me laugh. And then I started crying uncontrollably. Man, and I felt like I have to let go of that trauma. I cannot walk around being and feeling like a victim.
Well, you were never a slave.
I was never a slave,
so
but
what trauma
it's
are you
generational. It's generational.
Okay. It is.
And slavery.
And what do you mean by generational?
Slavery, it was mental, and they play on your emotions. And when you are a part of the Black community, there can be a division. And that division started in slavery between working in the fields and working in the house, and colorism between being lighter and being darker, and you having certain rewards for being lighter skin rather than being darker skin. You know, those things, it started then. The texture of our hair, how we respond just even to our futures. My lips are bigger, my nose is wider, my hair is coarse, things like that. These are things I had to go through when I was a kid.
Okay.
I tried to squeeze my lips together to make them smaller, or squeeze my nose to make it smaller, but also I would get relaxers in my hair because so that's why that afro was important to me, because I've never seen my hair like that.
Would you have felt like that if you were in a country where everyone was Black?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but you live in a country where white culture is predominantly everywhere. Yeah. And you notice the difference.
You notice the difference right away. Like, I remember posting when I finally had a flourishing afro, and I said, I said something about European futures. And this is when Black Panther came out, so everyone was about Wakanda forever. Yeah. I was very proud of myself. I was very proud to walk in the streets of Italy with this afro and having little Italian ladies staring up at me, and walking in the restaurants and people staring at me.
But you were, you are beautiful. You were beautiful then, and you're beautiful now.
Thank you.
But you can, but you could, hold your head up high. And you know what they thought? They thought, wow, she's beautiful. That's what they thought.
Yeah, thank you. Because, sometimes you are conditioned to think the latter. You are conditioned to think, oh, they're looking at me because I'm Black, or they're racist, things like that. And it's not just, oh, I'm beautiful and I'm this, and it's not that. That's not something that comes to my mind. That's not my first thought.
That wasn't your first thought growing up.
My first thought growing up, I've never really.
Well, maybe when you were 4 or 5, you didn't notice as much. But that's not what you were talking about earlier, right? When you were pinching your nose or relaxing your hair.
I was probably about 8 years old
when you really became aware.
When I became aware of my
that
features.
You didn't fit into white American culture.
And I was still living in West Texas. I was probably in the part of town we were living in. I think I was the only Black child. in my classroom in that part of town we were living in. So of course, like, I had pigtails every day. I had barrettes in my hair. My hair was always twisted up. So that's a noticeable difference, like.
Okay, it's noticeable.
Yeah. So
compared to a bunch of white kids.
Yeah,
or was it Hispanic also?
No, white kids too. When they're running and their hair is flowing in the wind, but my hair doesn't flow like that. I started noticing that difference, but I never embraced it until I got older and I shaved my head. And then I just let it grow in its natural state.
Why did you shave your head?
I shaved my head for the first time when I was living in New York, and I just needed something. I told you, when I get anxiety, I do something to my hair. When I was with that professional athlete, I couldn't be dramatic at all. It was very conservative, had to look like everybody else in a way.
Well, everyone wants to look like everybody else.
Look appropriate.
Yeah, you do.
But yeah, I moved to New York and it was cold. It was in the middle of winter and I shaved my head. And I did.
But New York is a rainbow of human experience.
And I loved that. Yeah, people, you have such a nice shaped head. And
I don't know if I told you I lived in New York for about 4 years.
You did.
I did. Okay. And I'm from Wichita, so not probably the most diverse upbringing. And when I got to New York, it was eye opening, and it was so good for me.
Yeah,
so good for me, and I loved New York for that. And I loved the diversity of culture, and it wasn't just white, black. It was everything from every country in the world. New York is a melting pot of every culture, and tolerance. You have to have tolerance in New York.
Oh, you sure
and
do.
Acceptance, tolerance and acceptance.
Yeah,
and to not be that way, you're a pariah. And I loved what it did for my soul.
It built character.
It did, yeah. Opened me up to new experiences, yeah, for sure.
I remember taking down my first mouse. I caught my first mouse in that Brooklyn apartment on a sticky trap, and I put it in a trash bag, and I took it to the dumpster. And then when the crack house next door burnt down, I called my old boss, who was a dentist, and I said, the crack house next door is burning down. He said, oh, it's just building character. You're fine.
What's that mean?
And then I said, oh, okay, I'm cool. He knew my story with the professional athlete. He knew what I was going through. When he would travel, sometimes we end up in the same city and he would come to games.
So where'd you live in New York?
In Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy.
Okay. All right. I lived up in Yonkers and Bronx for a little bit, and Tarrytown.
Yeah.
Worked in the city.
I was there at the beginning of the gentrification. Yeah.
Yeah, but you were there a lot later than I was.
Yeah,
that gentrification was starting when I was there back in mid-90s, early mid-90s.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were taking those brownstones in Brooklyn and making them into $1 million homes. And there was a bunch of them that had, I don't know when they came up, 30s, 40s, whatever it was, those things were built. And that generation had lived in them, grew old, and died. And then those people were selling these very, maintenance delayed brownstones, and people were going in with brand new stuff and gutting them and making them amazing. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Sorry. I went off on a tangent, didn't I?
It's okay. You need to talk about your story, too. Talk about your experience in New York.
Well, it is a conversation. But I think the most important thing is that we talk about your story.
Yeah.
Because it's an amazing story. And I think it's a story that people need to hear. I think people listening to this would be like, damn.
I've never experimented with drugs at all. And this is the only time in my life where I felt safe enough to say, okay, I'll try it. Like in this relationship, in this home where I've never done acid before. All of my friends are just smoking weed or taking edibles, but we're about to pop this LSD. So, and he's very meticulous as well. body weight. How much does she need to take, and how much do I need to take compared to, you know, our body weight? And
he's an engineer.
Oh my gosh, like just give it to me.
He may as well just go to medical school.
Right. Just give it to me. But he calculated the whole dosage and he writes it down. And so the next time when we do it, you know, I'm going to give you 25% less than what I gave you the last time. But he did a pretty good job on guiding me and
being there when you're in the fetal position.
Oh my gosh. But no one can help me in that fetal position. It was only for me. I had to go through those pictures in my head. Do you remember those little toys you can have where you put in like a little film
the 3D thing?
Yeah. Well, no, when you were like in the 90s. And it's like you put in a little Disney slit and you just click on it and you see all these different images. It was a toy.
But were they 3D?
No, it wasn't 3D.
Okay.
I remember going through all of these images on psychedelics, on acid, and
wow. But they were images of
my mother, my ancestors, you know. That was for about a good hour and a half. Were they
still images? You know, not moving images, or some of the moving images?
It was still images.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Just for a good hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must have saw a lot in an hour and a half.
But it goes by so fast. It can probably be the same image for minutes, you know, just staring at it.
Taking it in.
Just taking it in.
And it doesn't transform. It just stays exactly the same. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't like to really talk about slavery. You know, I love African-American culture, but I do want to say that my boyfriend asked me a very important question. He's like, why did we have to have slavery? I didn't know really how to answer it, but
He's asking you that question?
Mm-hmm. We're both under the influence, you know. Why did that have to happen? Why did that type of injustice have to happen, you know? I didn't really know what to say, but one thing I did say, and I was just like, you know, I don't know why it happened. I'm also very sad that it happened because, of course, we're still going through a lot today, just to have equal rights, you know. But I said it had to happen for us to be together. Like, I don't want to say that particular thing had to happen, but I do believe that God uses the bad for good.
Definitely.
I do believe that.
It's really hard to see the good.
It's really hard to see the good in that. It's really hard.
But I believe that it's almost essential.
Mm-hmm. I hate the way that it happened.
Exactly.
I hate the history. I hate everything that's going on today. I hate all that. And it's just like, I don't know why it had to happen. I don't know why. But we're here now. Mm-hmm. You know, we're here, and this is what we should really be joining hands and being together is what it's all about. It's just being together. This is the most diverse country in the world. It's a melting pot of everyone. You have little Thai town, you have little Tokyo, you have Koreatown. You know, you have so many different ethnicities and towns and different cities. It's just, I don't know why it had to happen.
I don't know why it had to happen.
But it happened, and we're here. And you know what? I want to look at it. I want to face it, you know? I want to walk through that fire. I want to get to the other side of that, you know?
Yes.
That's kind of what my psychedelic experience was about, because, you know, if you have an 86-year-old grandmother born in 1934, you know, slavery was just abolished, like 60 years before that, you know?
Right.
And
there was many people alive at that time that had been slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Many people, you know, parents were slaves, and you're born with this mentality, raising kids, and you start having children at 12 years old, and so you're raising
and the poverty. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The lack of education, the inequality of their experience too, and then trying to survive and raise kids in that. And
you're conditioned a certain way. Even in 2020, there are a lot of people who are still conditioned with PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder.
Say that again.
there are a lot of people,
but
even in 2020, who are still conditioned with PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder.
Event?
It's a mental event.
From slavery.
You are attacked mentally.
So explain that. How does the PTSD get from your aunt, who was born in 1934?
My grandmother.
Your grandmother, okay.
My grandmother's still alive, and it's very hard.
So she still has the PTSD.
No, it's your.
You said this. We talked about multi-generational.
We talk about multi-generational trauma. You can't do certain things. You can't be a certain way, When you start having children at 12 years old, and you have, 7 girls and 3 boys, of course you treat those girls different than you treat the boys. But then also the era that you're growing up in. And so you raise your children a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And now your children are taking those things and they're raising their children that same way.
Exactly.
I'm a product of that, So I have to learn to reparent myself.
Yes.
If I want to thrive, I have to learn to reparent myself.
Well, because you're right, because there are traditions and things that transfer all the way down.
Because you're a woman, you shouldn't do certain things, because you're a woman, or because when you were a slave, you were bought and sold like cattle. So as a family, we need to stick together. We need to all be in one place. And this is something that my grandmother told me. You shouldn't move. You need to be where we are. Because if someone dies, what will happen? I'll come home.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I study Hispanic culture through my program, and familialism is a thing where families are very tight in Hispanic culture, and they're a person isn't an individual; they're an extension of the family, and so they don't have the individualism that just American Western culture would suggest. They stick together as families, but a lot of your minority, anybody in any ethnic group anywhere in the world, they stick together because it's a means of survival. The Hispanics, even just in South America, they stick together because it is a third world country and the resources are thin. Opportunities are everywhere for everybody. They create their own opportunities and then stay strong within the family, and so they need everybody to maintain a certain amount of strength for survival. And I think that's common. I think the Jewish people were doing that. I think that's common in other cultures that migrate to this country. In New York, you see that a lot. And through the people who migrated through Ellis Island, I don't know if you ever went through Ellis Island and learned the history of Ellis Island.
I know, but I've never been through.
That's an eye-opening experience. But when people came off the boats, they found their people. And then those people stuck together, and those groups still exist in New York. All those groups, cities, and Chinatown or this town or Little Italy, but it's common with a culture or an ethnicity that struggles, the sticking together, and the more empowered and that the people become, that starts to break apart a little bit, and the older generations complain.
Yeah, well, she's not really complaining anymore. She's too
old
now. But
it's good though, right?
Well, I appreciated her her words, her thoughts, her concerns, But that was an old way of thinking. It was a very old way of thinking.
She was just telling you her wisdom and what she knew.
Her wisdom and what she knew, but also there's fear there.
She fears for you.
But no, there's a lot of people who grow up in the church and their ideal of God is fear-based.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't fear God. God is like a friend to me. He's like my best friend. I think it's the coolest thing to follow and submit, because there's so many places that you can go and you can become a person that you never thought you become.
But you've always sort of kind of known that, even when you were a small child.
But I didn't know how to get there. It was like I had to build my own spaceship, and I didn't know how long that was going to take.
Yeah.
You know, I knew God was always in me. I never stopped praying, even though my perpetrator took me to church every Sunday. I could have rebelled, but I didn't. I never stopped praying, you know? So even during that time on psychedelics, I had to say, my body is my body. It doesn't belong to anybody else. This is my body. You know, my aunts have been sexually abused. You know, my grandmother or whoever has had this pain, it has followed. You know, you have those generational traumas and cycles. And I had to say to myself while I was on psychedelics, this is my body. It belongs to me. It doesn't belong to anybody else. I cannot let my past trigger me and affect my future. You know, I cannot let that happen. I have to get over that. Although I don't act out sexually, you know, in my relationships, I don't see myself going back to that time when I'm active, you know, in that part of my relationship. So I don't feel like it affects me, but I think the thought affects me when I'm out of it. Like having that dream, and it's like, why did I have that dream? Why did I just hear his voice? And it was so clear. Why did I just hear it? Yes, just a few weeks ago.
And what did the voice say again?
Oh, man. That's what the voice said. Because I woke up and I caught him trying to touch me in my dream. He's the father of my brother, who's 28 years old. And when I'm at home in my mom's house, my brother walks around and he talks on the phone with his dad on speaker. Never fails, all the time. And I hear his voice. And I hear him say, "Oh man," like if something doesn't go his way.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I heard that, and I heard his voice. And I was just so bothered. I was so bothered, you know.
Okay.
I told my sister. I told my partner, and I was just like, why did I have that dream? Why? I don't understand why. You know, after the whole psychedelic experience, the whole my body's my body, doesn't belong to anyone else. And then also having this feeling that, you know, I'm connected to my partner in some kind of way, in a way that I've never really experienced that before.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Because you said something
too.
About that. You said something to him. What'd you say to him?
What do you mean? When?
About being already...
Oh, we're spiritually married already.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been trying to break up with me since we started. So I was like, we already together. We're locked and loaded.
But something happened in the hypnosis too.
Yeah. Because I've been questioning, you know, what we're doing, and I'm leaving pretty soon to, you know, go and help out my sister with her new baby.
Yeah.
And I just felt like we were going to break up when I leave. So that was a big worry.
Before the hypnosis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the hypnosis, we were talking about it. Like, we'll just have a regular conversation, and he'll say, "We're gonna break up, aren't we?" And I'm like, I hope not. But are we headed that way? Because we're just having this casual conversation about breaking up, and
it's
so
so
it kind
cool
of
that you guys
sounds real.
could just be that open and honest with each other.
Yeah. He enjoys it, but it kind of pains me sometimes.
You.
Yeah, I get.
Okay, so you're married spiritually. At least
and
you get
I realized that
idea.
on psychedelics.
Right. Yeah, and then, but so what happens in the hypnosis that you found out?
Well, we did past life regression.
Well, we kind of
did.
We didn't set off to do that, but once you're in that space, it's pretty easy to get there. I mean, all I gotta say is, you know, let's find out. So 3, 2, 1, be there and let me know what you see. And what did you see?
Okay, so I saw us together. We were 5 years old. Early 19th century.
Yeah.
I went into this hypnosis kind of skeptical, to be honest. And I told you about that. I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't really want to have expectations.
Yeah.
You see on TV,
You didn't want to be
swirly
disappointed.
black and white and bark like a dog, and listening to your podcast with Dr. Kim, and also my partner's
almost
experience.
Impossible.
Yeah,
it does, doesn't it? I know.
And the way that it happened so fast, it was just like I was in there. I was just in,
You went quick.
I did.
Well, it takes about 30, 40 minutes. You may not know that it was 30 minutes or 40 minutes.
I didn't know.
It goes by really fast when you're in hypnosis, but it takes that long.
So, yeah. My thing with him is that since the day we met, I felt like we were supposed to be together. Since the day we met.
It's the feeling you had.
I felt like I've already knew him, and even if he would try to break up with me every other week, and I'm like, dude, I'm in it. Are you in it? Like, because we can't keep doing this.
Yeah. Let's not share too much about this stuff.
No, this is my stuff.
Okay.
And so coming into the hypnosis, I wanted questions about that. I had questions about that. I wanted answers about that. Sorry. And so the first thing we went into.
I think people should be skeptical.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
So the first thing we went into, I just seen ourselves at 5 years old. We were together.
Yeah, but that wasn't the first thing you saw.
What was the first thing I saw?
You saw yourself on the ground.
Oh,
You'd been injured.
Yeah.
And that there was all these men standing around you that had done it. And you were only 5.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's there.
Tell me, Dr. Drew.
Well, I mean, I was awake and you were kind of somewhere else a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's the order that I remember it in, and that he helped you up, and you guys walked hand in hand.
You give me chills all over again.
Just yeah. So, well, I'm telling the story. You tell the story.
I like your version of it.
Was that what happened?
But yeah, I see that now. Yeah. Okay. I'm replaying that now.
Okay, because you kind of forgotten a little bit.
I feel like I was skipping, but you're going through it, yeah.
Okay. And so, but then we said, okay, so that played out. He helped you. You walked away hand in hand. And then we went forward. Just, okay, let's go to an important time. Let's be there now. 3, 2, 1. What do you notice? That's how easy it is. That's how we get there. And I think you were young. You were 12 or 15 or something young, and you're married to him.
Okay. Because there was 2 instances where we were the same age but different eras.
But so I think in that lifetime with those 2 kids, you ended up together in that lifetime, and then after that, you fast forwarded to another lifetime, another time. That you were it was the 1950s.
And we were in school. I remember saying something about a school.
You were in school. You were together. You knew each other. You liked him.
But he didn't like me.
But he didn't like you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we got, I think the next time we did that, we went to the future.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, you just broke open the devil. You looking into the future.
But some way deep down, you know this already.
Well, I mean, you saw the 2 of you.
Okay.
10 years from now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and you told him this, I assume.
I did, and his response was just like, it was a revelation for me. It was like, okay, So
he was kind of like happy.
Yeah, he was happy. He was also kind of envious of my experience, but at the same time, he put things in perspective for me. When I said, "Oh, we had 2 girls," and he's like, okay. Did I ever tell you that I didn't want boys? And I said, well, it doesn't really matter what you want. It just happens.
That's what you're going to get. What you get. You don't throw a fit.
Exactly. It just happens. But I said, we had 2 girls. And I know for a fact, and this is for me, and it's how I feel and how I feel like what's going to happen. I'm going to have a girl first. I said, kind of with my trauma, with the way things happen, I feel like God's going to give me a girl first, you know? And then I said, you know, with you, it just may happen, you know, if we're together. So in the future, I saw us. We were in the doorway, the same rug, because I remember you asking me, did anything about the house change, right? And then you said, did it have to change?
Well, because we talked earlier, before the hypnosis, that you wanted the house, you felt like you're in his house. You always feel like you're in his house. And I said something like, you know, you want it to be more like y'all's house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you kind of resonated with that and said, yeah, that's kind of what I want. But then in hypnosis, it was the same house, but I said, but you said you were okay with that then. That it was okay now that it was that way. You were sanguine with it in some way.
Yeah.
You had found peace with it.
I found peace with that. Yeah. So we had two girls. We were in the same house. Still had the same rug 10 years later in the house.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily if we were living in that house, but I do know that we're currently looking at houses. And so I told him, if we find something, you should keep this house. Don't give it up. And so when we talked later on that night, he was like, yeah, I think I am going to keep this house. And I said, I know this house is in our life. I know that much.
Okay.
Whether in my hypnosis, if we were living there or just visiting, I know that we still had that house.
But when I talked to him the day after, and you know this, and he said that the experience for you, especially with the past life stuff, was sort of changing some of your belief systems. Is that not accurate? It shook that a little bit.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. Like you didn't believe in past life, and maybe now you do. Or
I
something?
didn't believe in past life. I didn't think that type of thing was really possible because I've never experienced it. I've never really been around people who talked about it as much. And, but you know, also I never fasted until I did. So
well, I want to talk about that for just a second about the past life stuff because I think it is hard for people to get their head wrapped around that. Idea. It's hard for me to think that I was someone else, and I've never had a past life hypnosis experience where I experienced a past life to the extent that I know that was real, and so that's another thing. But the deal is that in hypnosis, people will travel back to a time and a scene. It'd be very visceral, it'd be immersive, as if they were there and experiencing it, as if they were there. And it comes with a certain security of knowing that was real. And I think that you had that. Did you have that sense that what you were seeing was real? Okay. It didn't seem like a dream or a daydream or like I didn't plant that suggestion in your head or something like that.
No. I also feel like at some point I was there before you took me there.
Oh, see, that happens too. And, you know, I always tell everybody in hypnosis that you get what you're ready for and you get what you need. And I never know what that's going to be. And the last thing in all my training, it says don't lead the client. Don't lead them. Don't say, well, what are you doing? Eating ice cream. Oh, a bowl of ice cream. No, not a bowl. It was on a stick. You can't assume anything, and you don't want to lead the client. You know, you may feel so strongly that it's one way, and you'll always be surprised that it's not that way. So it's kind of like, you know, you just have to, well, what does that mean? How does that, anyway? So you don't lead the client into seeing or doing anything. And everything that you saw completely on your own. Yeah. I mean, it was just very organic in that way. It came up the way it came up.
And my support system was there. That's what I needed. They were there before we went into the past life regression.
We'll talk about that because a lot of your family came through. I loved your story about Uncle Don. Yeah. Real quick, can you just tell the little history of the story of taking him out to California?
Okay, so my Uncle Don was in prison for over 20 years. And the last
For
time I
some
remember,
bad stuff.
Yeah, the last time I remember seeing him, I was probably like 3 or 4 years old, and he was pushing me around the little Flintstone car. And so here I am in California. Now I'm like 30 years old at the time, and my sister's on her way out to California. 18-hour drive from West Texas. And so she calls me and says, I'm going to bring Uncle Don. And I said, no, do not bring Uncle Don. He was probably just out of prison for a couple months. Then a minute later, I called her back and I said, bring Uncle Don. And
something happened. What happened?
You mean
Why did you change your mind?
It was a voice and it was a feeling.
A voice.
He needed to be there. He needed to be there.
What'd the voice say?
Bring Uncle Don.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I hung up that phone with her, because I was very adamant about him not coming. As soon as I hung up the phone, he needs to be there. Okay. I picked the phone back up and I said, bring Uncle Don.
Okay, you will.
So they take that 18-hour drive, and
he was cool.
He was cool. He gets there. He tells me the first night, the first hour that he's there, that he has bone cancer. I didn't really know how to respond to that. I haven't seen you.
This was in April.
Of that year. I think it was like 2014, April of that year. And so we're spending a couple days together, and I have a cousin that lives 2 blocks away from me. Mm-hmm. And this cousin is, okay, let's just say it's a cousin because it's too much to go through.
That's fine.
So I have a cousin that lives 2 blocks away from me, and he calls and he says, I heard you're my cousin. And I said, yeah, I haven't seen you in a long time, and Uncle Don is here. Like, let's all go to Venice Beach. So we went to Venice Beach, and we're all hanging out at the beach. We even bring the little dog with us, and Uncle Don just walks out to the water. And he's there for a few minutes. And when he comes back, and I said, Uncle Don, what were you thinking about? And he said, each wave that keeps crashing on the land, it's a new wave. It's a new chance. It's a new opportunity. It's never the same. Each wave that crashes is never the same.
It was like a profound moment
for him, for me. It took me, because I've really, I don't have a very good experience with water because I don't swim.
But you almost saw a point to why he came out there, right?
Mm-hmm. He needed to be there. He needed to be there. And so a couple of days later, I take him to the Greyhound station, and he's crying. And I was just like, why are you crying? Because I'm not going to see you again. I'm like, I'm going to be home soon. You'll see me again. And he passed in that September. That September of 2014, he passed. Mm-hmm. And man, I'm so glad I had that chance with him, that opportunity with him. I'm so thankful for that. It was an opportunity for
you to learn a lesson about grace.
Oh, yeah. You kind of got a little quiet on me when I was telling you that story.
It got me.
And I said, are you okay? God is using you.
God is using you.
I'm like, I know.
He does. He's using you, and you're letting him, and it's wonderful.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It just, it gets me because it's awesome. It's love. It's wonderful.
So when I was under hypnosis, my granny came through first. She was the main supporter in my life, like the one that I cried to, everything. I needed her all the time. And I felt my eyes fill up, but I couldn't open my eyes. And I just felt the tears fall down my face into my neck. And I know I was quiet for a long time.
In hypnosis?
In hypnosis.
You felt the tears coming down?
I felt my tears coming
all
down.
all down here?
Mm-hmm.
You never shed a tear.
Stop it, because I still feel those tears. Like,
you never shed a tear.
Felt those tears.
You never shed a tear.
Stop.
I was surprised.
No.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, no, I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
Those.
I forgot. No, you did. But okay, never mind. I think I'm wrong. I stand corrected.
My
I
eyes were-
remember them now. I don't think it was at first. You didn't. You were getting really emotional, and you didn't shed tears. You eventually did, but you said this was the first one, right? That was the one I remember not crying. Doesn't matter. But I think it's interesting that you perceived it that way. You perceived it that way.
Well, when she came through,
I've had people do that. They talk about the tears were in the way and they couldn't see. Well, they weren't crying.
But it's so funny because
it is a visceral experience. You feel like you're there
Yeah.
and experiencing it in some other way. Yeah.
I felt my eyes filling up, and I maybe it was like one or two tears, but
Maybe they filled up. I didn't see a big stream running down your neck.
I felt the stream from my face to my neck. I felt
when you
all
saw
of that.
Granny.
Yeah, she was the
Well,
first.
she
one.
came up a couple of times.
Oh, she stayed there.
Okay.
She never left. They never left.
What kind of a space was this in?
We were in that chair, in that room. You were to the left, they were to the right.
Oh, there's just like a lamp and a wall to the right.
Well, they were right there.
In that room?
In that room.
Oh.
She came through and it was just a light. And I've always
you didn't see a face? You saw a light?
I've always admired her complexion. I admire my mom's complexion, just smooth brown skin. That's all I saw, smooth brown face and just a light. And I immediately recognized her, and I haven't seen her in so long.
How old are you when she passed?
25.
Okay. It's been 10 years. Or close to.
Yeah. I haven't seen her in so long, and I needed her because it's like every time I needed her, she was always there. So I felt overwhelmed.
And you hugged?
And I hugged.
Could you feel the hug?
Yeah, because that's all I used to ever do with her. Even being grown in my 20s, I would lay in her lap. I would lay in her bosom. Like, I just hang myself over her body. I just needed her. I just loved caressing her. And that's what we were doing. And then...
But you felt it.
I did.
I have heard that so many times in sessions where people do get to reunite with family. The first time that happened, a guy reunited with his father, and after the session, I suggested that they hug in the session, and then after, he said during that hug, he could still feel the whiskers of his father's face on his face, and he had forgotten what that felt like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
That's awesome.
And no, it's not on the menu. I can't predict that's going to happen.
What's for you
sometimes.
is for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get what you're ready for, and what you need. And if that all lines up, then it happens. I can't guarantee it's going to happen.
Well, my support system was there.
So it wasn't just your granny.
My granny was there.
Uncle Don.
Uncle Don came.
And you really cried when it was Uncle Don.
Because I heard his voice. And my sister and I, we joke about his voice all the time. It was really deep and raspy.
Oh, okay.
And she could do the impression way better than I can. But even when I left here and I called her and she said, Uncle Don, was it his voice? I said, yeah, it was his voice.
Wow.
Yeah. So my Uncle Don was there. My granny, my Aunt Martha Kay, which is their sister, was there. And she used to fill me up like no other. Tell me how beautiful I was. Just, if I could have talked to her on the phone every day, I think maybe life would have been a little different. Because every time I seen her, my cup was full, Then my Uncle Titty was there.
Uncle what?
My Uncle Titty.
Titty?
Sylvester, but Uncle Titty is his nickname.
All right.
My Uncle Sylvester, but Uncle Titty is his nickname.
Gotcha.
He came through, and he's the oldest. My grandmother is the second oldest. And he named me. And he used to, every time I came home, he just wanted to sit down and talk to me. And my great grandpa was there. Their father was there. Even in his old age.
And what's your name?
Huh?
Destiny,
yeah. I used to think to myself, what does my name mean? There has to be a meaning to my name and to my life, And when you read the Bible, God changes people's names as they come through that spiritual awakening. And I'm ready for my spiritual awakening, but my name is still the same. But it's like my name didn't change. I needed to change, not my name. My name was already given, you know?
There's a movie that can't think of the actress's name. I see where the heart is, or the something about the heartbeat. No, I can't remember. She was anyway. I'm screwing this up. Yeah, no. But she met a guy. She got pregnant in the movie, and she met a photographer at Walmart, and he says, "What are you gonna name the baby?" And it was just something like Mary or something, or I don't know what it was. It was like Samantha. I don't know what it was. She had some idea, and he goes, you got to give that baby a name that means something. And she's like, and he meant it.
Yeah.
And she named it America.
Oh, okay.
It's like, okay. It was a really cool movie.
That's actually a pretty good name.
The beat of the heart, or the where the heart beats. It's the girl that was the princess. She played a princess in a Star Wars thing. I can't think of her name. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
You'll tell me later.
Anyway, name that kid something that means something. That's my only point. Destiny.
Yeah. And when my granddaddy came through, like, he was old, and I remember him sitting in the car for 18 hours 16 from West Texas to Arizona to come to my high school graduation, and he's just like, I have to be there. I have to be there. And all those people that were there under my hypnosis, that was the foundation. That's my support system.
Yeah, and they were all there. I needed them. And they had all passed.
They all passed. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And there they were.
Man, I needed them. My granny said, it's okay to let go. Mm-hmm. It's okay to let go. And it had two meanings for me. One, let go of my pain and your mother's pain and yours.
Let go of your mother's pain. The pain she caused you?
The trauma.
That she caused you.
And what she had.
How do you let go of what she had?
Because it was reflecting on me. I feel like when I went back and I spoke to my aunt, and she said, you know what? If that happened to me, then it had to have happened to your mother. I've always felt like something has happened to my mom, because it is very uncomfortable. Well,
yeah, I mean, we talked about that before.
We did.
Yeah, your aunt was like, if it happened to me on the weekend, it was happening to her during the week.
Exactly. And it was like, if that happened to her, that was the only way she would be okay with staying in a marriage like that. Me and my sister always talked about it. Why was she okay with staying there? Didn't divorce until I was 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
And I had to let go of that. If I can let go of that, I can build a relationship with her. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the relationship that I would like to have.
Do you feel like you will at some point?
At some point, because my sister made me tell her about my experience that we had together. I called my sister and I told her, and she starts crying. So then she tells my mom, and then she said, I didn't tell her everything, but I do think you need to call her and you need to tell her. Mm-hmm. So we get on FaceTime. We're three-waying on FaceTime.
When was this?
Wednesday morning now. Okay. Wednesday morning.
Yesterday morning.
Yeah, yesterday morning. And so I told her everything. And I said, Granny said it was okay to let go of her pain and your pain and my pain. I have to let go. Mm-hmm. I immediately felt peace when she said that. Immediately.
What'd she say?
I have to let go. It's okay to let go.
When Granny said that to you in the hypnosis session.
In the hypnosis.
And how did your mom respond yesterday?
I felt that come off of me. I felt it come off. Yeah. My mom didn't say anything. She didn't say anything.
She's processing.
Probably.
And what that means. I mean, not the things that you arrive at in a headspace like that is a gift for you. Not everyone's going to appreciate that gift the way you appreciate it.
I was looking for it.
And and you were been looking for it. It started when you were at the art gallery. And how many years ago was that?
3.
You've come a long way.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so I don't mean to interrupt, but, and I know I do. I'm terrible.
It's okay. We're talking.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
So you're on the phone, the 3 of you, or on FaceTime with the 3 of you.
She doesn't have a response. And I'm used to that.
Was that disappointing?
No, because I'm used to it. And sometimes this is why.
But it planted a seed in a way, don't you think?
Maybe. And maybe we'll talk about it one day.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to put pressure on it because I let go. I did that. And now I have to do my part. I have to continue to do my part for me and for my future, you know, even just for the present, showing up more for myself, reparenting myself, you know, reconditioning myself, you know. I have to show up for me and I can't be apologetic about it.
I think you kind of came to that conclusion toward the end of the session. Things became very clear.
Oh, man, I was walking on a cloud. I was so much at peace. Whatever happens will happen. And I think one of the things that I also had a concern about was, you know, my relationship. And when my grandmother said in the end, it's okay to let go, it was like, okay, I'm going to leave. Yeah. You know, and when I come back, he'll still be there. Yeah. And I was happy with that, too.
And you did all this on your own. I mean, I'm just watching at this point. You know, my job is just to fan that door open and let you walk through, and you get what you get. But there's nothing I could do. There's no words I could say that would replace what your granny said, or the support that you felt, or the conclusions that you came to. You came to all those on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. You healed yourself.
With your help.
I just created the space for you to do that.
You did. I mean, if I had a choice between psychedelics and hypnosis, I think I still do both.
That's a fair statement. And I'm always kind of curious about what the difference would be, because I know that they've approved some MDMA for testing for PTSD. There are clinics being set up even here in Wichita that will be doing that testing and that research to determine the efficacy of the MDMA in the treatment of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And they're opening the door to that. Maybe there's some value in that. I think that, you know, the jury's still out. I think people have come back and said it's, you know, that has value. I don't think that MDMA is the only way to do that.
People are using
clinicians will have to learn how to guide people through that stuff.
There's some people who are using, is it ketamine?
Ketamine and MDMA, I believe, are the same thing.
Okay, I'm not familiar with these terms.
I'm not. Well, I mean, I'm just. It has come up. I mean, I've heard Joe Rogan talking about. I had a guest on talking about how much ketamine he was doing, but it's the same thing as MDMA. So that's one source that I'm using to do that. I also have a friend of mine who is a clinician here in Wichita, and her clinic was approved. I haven't talked to her in about a year, but. Her clinic was approved at that time to do the trials here in Wichita, and I don't know when they should. I think they were going to start doing those in 2021. I don't know how the pandemic has affected that schedule. Maybe it hasn't at that point, but we'll see. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding that research, because I think it also, because if there's value in that, I hope that it would bring value back to hypnosis, because I don't think hypnosis really has gotten the attention that it deserves in the clinical space.
That's true.
And it's just something that is helpful. I mean, we talk about, you know, EMDR, we talk about all these other treatments, you know, prolonged exposure, these treatments for PTSD, but that hypnotic state is where feelings, you know, become so, like, grab them, you know, and work with them when it's so hard to get in touch with those feelings in a conscious state of mind. And I guess that's maybe what the the ketamine and all that MDMA is doing, is helping people get more in touch. But you know, we'll see. I mean, I have great hopes for all of these methods, and I did want to kind of compare the two. But you say you would do either one again.
There are, you know, with hypnosis, once you're out of it, you're out of it. You're not on any drugs, and it doesn't last for 6 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
You know,
You said you were dizzy headed for just a little bit after.
I had a headache all night.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I woke up the next morning. And I also think because I felt like I was doing a lot of crying, and when I cry a lot, I do get a headache.
Okay.
I felt like I was doing a lot
in
of
the
crying
session. You felt
in
like
the session.
Well, you were crying. You were definitely welling up. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when your great granddad came in.
Yeah.
Whoa, the chin was going.
Was my chin going?
Oh.
Don't do that.
I loved it.
Oh man, yeah. Well, you know, if you don't want to have that prolonged experience of, you know, being high or tripping for 6 to 10 hours, then I wouldn't do psychedelics, you know. But when you are doing psychedelics, you need to be in a safe space, and you need to maybe have a guide, you know.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be alone.
You shouldn't be alone, and you shouldn't be with a negative person. And there's a
shouldn't
lot
be-
of controls there.
Yeah, and if you're looking for something spiritual, you do need to be in a controlled environment. You shouldn't be out partying.
It's not a party drug.
It's not, no.
Or that healing is not going to come in a club.
Yeah. Coming to you and actually being able to confide in someone and automatically feeling just safe with you. You have a very good energy. And then to be able to guide me in and out of the hypnosis, I think if you're that type of person who doesn't want to lean towards drugs, then I would definitely try hypnosis.
Well, some people think hypnosis is of the devil.
No.
I fought a lot
because
of that
you go
already.
into a deeper level.
It's just an expanded state of consciousness.
Yeah. And maybe that is the devil for some people.
I don't know.
They're going places where they don't want to go. They
maybe.
don't want to face some of the things. They don't want to walk. When I came to you, I said I got to walk through that fire. You said, "Well, what does that mean?" For some people, that's hell.
Yeah. But I mean, so you saw these. Was it hell? It wasn't hell seeing your family.
No.
There wasn't anything.
But the thing is that it hurts. These things hurt. And so when I said you have to walk through the fire, it just means it's going to hurt a little bit, but it's going to be all right when you get to the end, And I went in and I felt totally safe and I felt good. I followed your lead, but then I also went out on my own.
Yeah.
And
I mean, once you got, I can't remember quite how what was your beautiful place?
being in my grandmother's arms. Oh, you mean in the beginning?
Yeah,
I was on a beach.
You were on a beach. Did we go from the beach?
And
somewhere?
it was an isolated beach.
And we
yes.
got you on the cloud.
And you got me on the cloud.
And then you came off the cloud. And what's the first thing you saw?
My grandmother.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
She was the first one I saw.
Was she in my office?
Mm-hmm. First she started off in front of me,
Uh-huh.
like coming towards me. Then she came to the side where there's more space. And then everyone started coming in.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't aware of any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would had that ability to just kind of tune in and like, ooh, someone else is here. Who's that?
Yeah, right? That would have been cool.
Well, I know people that could do that.
Yeah.
In fact, on Monday, I'm going to talk with a gal who's a psychic. Her gift is genuine and real. And we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff.
That would be awesome. I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it either. Well, I think it's such a fascinating topic, and that's what's up next. But is there anything else you wanted to add?
I want to say thank you for allowing me to
It was my
experience
pleasure, my
this.
honor and my pleasure.
Yeah. Very grateful. It is definitely something that I needed, and I think that the timing was right, especially with what was going through in my head. And when my partner presented it to me, I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Everything was right. Everything was good, and I got what I needed. And I hope we can continue to communicate.
I think we will.
Yeah.
No doubt. Thank you for being part of this today. Your story is going to inspire people. You are an amazing person. And I thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
So with that, we just did.